Transition. The process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroad where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future. Shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, and we are not exempt from this remarkable, ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
Well, welcome back to Transition Radio Show. I'm Mark Angelo.
And I'm Lynna Ariel Cummings. Tonight we embark on a journey that challenges everything we believe about the ground beneath our feet. We're talking about transitions of a different kind this time. Those that might have happened beneath our feet thousands of years ago.
Well, that's right, Lynna. We spend our lives looking upward, searching the cosmos for signs of intelligence. But what if the greatest secret on Earth isn't hidden in the stars, but buried beneath us? What if an ancient civilization never vanished at all? It just went deeper.
The ground beneath us, it feels solid, permanent, and known, but the truth is far stranger. The deepest hole is the Kola super deep borehole in Russia. We have some images of it. But it's the deepest hole that was ever drilled. And it reached only about 7.5 miles down. But that's less than scratching the surface, honestly.
So,
it just keeps going. You can just let it roll on through.
Okay.
Go ahead and read on.
Hold on. This is working.
It's working.
All right, so we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the existing surface of the moon that exists in those lightest depths beneath the crust. The Earth's crust extends up to 30 miles in some places, and beneath that lies the mantle stretching nearly 1,800 miles deeper.
So the diagram of the Earth's internal layers, the crust, the mantle, you can pause it. It's in that darkness, in those unmapped regions where no human eye has ever seen, the haunting idea takes hold that the Earth is not just a planet, but a shell. That beneath the bedrock and stone, there exists another world entirely. A world of vast caverns, underground seas, forgotten cities, and sleeping civilizations. And while science tells us one story about what lies below, the myths, well, they tell us another. And sometimes the two begin to overlap in ways that make you wonder, and isn't that amazing that they would have dug something that deep in Russia? And that, I mean, you can play on into, there's more shots of this hole. It's massive.
Do I
It's just,
it?
you can keep going.
Okay.
It's massive.
Look at that.
Unbelievable. And then we have more shots of the core and the crust, how the Earth is formed and shaped. And it just goes to show you that there's so much more that lies below us than we would even imagine. There's some more images of that. That would be the last one. You can pause it.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's totally amazing how deep things actually go. When they say how deep the rabbit hole goes, they ain't kidding.
Yeah, you can play again.
Okay.
We're going to go right into the Sumerians.
So go ahead and play it.
Yeah.
So these stories are older than writing itself. The ancient Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, being who descended from the heavens, but also dwelt in the depths of the earth. Their underworld was not just a place of the dead, it was a realm of power and knowledge.
You can pause it. The Greek myths speak of deeper places than Hades. I mean, these images of these cuneiform tablets are historical record. You know, they did exist. They do exist. Amazingly, they're in libraries that, well, it's kind of unbelievable because you actually see these things in libraries like in London, museums, you know, in places that they shouldn't be. You know what I mean? It's almost like another group of people took possession of ancient records for themselves. You can play it a little bit more. We've got some more images of some of these tablets, you know, and the writings and stuff. And we can pause after that next one.
Okay.
So the Greek myths speak of deeper places than Hades. They speak of Tartarus, a prison for the Titans, so far beneath the earth that an anvil dropped from the surface would fall for 9 days before reaching the floor.
Moving eastward, Hindu traditions tells us of the Nagas, the serpent beings who dwelt in the Patala, a subterranean realm of jeweled palaces and underground rivers. These Nagas were not demons, but guardians of ancient wisdom. Christians will probably call them demons, emerging occasionally to share knowledge with surface dwellers before vanishing back into their hidden kingdom.
And you can play some more because we have some images of these Titans in Tartarus, and then you keep going, and then we have some images of the actual legendary Nagas from Hindu tradition. And you can pause it after you get to the last image. That's going to be blue in color.
That one?
Nope, in blue in color.
Oh, I had blue in it.
It's amazing how
all
these different cultures
and
they
sculpture.
have.
This one?
No, it's more than that. But we have, no, that's more than that. But it's just amazing. Yeah, this is the one.
Okay.
What you find here is the serpent as being not evil, but a messenger.
Right.
You can play it again. Sorry, we're just trying to get, just getting figured out how to share these images best with you. And you can pause it after the next one.
Okay.
In North America, the Hopi people speak of the ant people who lived in vast underground cities during times of great catastrophe when the world above became uninhabitable. The ant people opened their tunnels and brought humanity down into the safety of the earth. The tunnels, the cities, and some say that the ant people remain there, waiting for the next time they'll be needed.
That's pretty interesting. The Tibetan Buddhists speak of Shambhala, a hidden kingdom existing either in a remote valley or beneath the earth itself, a place of enlightenment and advanced beings. The Norse had I can't even pronounce that, Svartalfheim, home to the dark elves, and the Celts told the Tawada, the Dinan, who retreated into the hollow hills and mountains of Ireland.
We have some images to show on that too. We have the Kachina dolls from the Hopi ant people. And we have we've seen some of these inscriptions, some of these, petroglyphs, and actual images of some of the Hopi cladding themselves in some of those. So that's Agartha, I believe. You can pause it there. But the most persistent legend is that of Agartha. This described it's a vast underground kingdom, a network of tunnels and cities spanning the entire planet, ruled by the quote-unquote king of the world. Its capital, Shambhala, is a place of crystal towers, you can play it, and advanced technology where beings of light preserve the knowledge of fallen surface civilizations like Atlantis and Lemuria, whose refugees supposedly fled underground. It's amazing. You can pause it there.
So this idea gained serious traction in the 19th century and early 20th centuries. In 1818, John Cleves Sims Jr., an American Army officer, proposed that the Earth was hollow and habitable within, with openings at the North and South Poles, which we can't get to right now. They have it all guarded up. This theory inspired popular novels like Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth.
So we have some pictures of Mr. John Cleves Sr. and his proposal of the hollow Earth and how that might have looked. You can pause it there. And then we have the accounts of people who claim to have found these entrances. In 1908, Norwegian sailor Olaf Jansen described sailing through an opening at the North Pole, discovering an inner land lit by a small interior sun. He claimed to have spent 2 years living among tall, advanced beings who possessed technology far beyond ours. And you can play some of that.
So similarly, Admiral Richard Byrd, a respected naval officer and polar explorer, allegedly recorded in a diary in 1947 encounter during a North Pole flight. His plane was supposedly drawn into a warm green land beneath the ice where he encountered beings who warned him about humanity's use of atomic weapons. They claimed they had been watching and would intervene if humanity continued down its destructive path. While the official records deny this event, the story persists, suggesting that these hidden civilizations didn't die. They simply withdrew, watching the surface world from below.
And there's Mr. Byrd. You can play it still. And we'll see different pictures of Admiral Byrd. And we're going to get into more detail about Admiral Byrd and what he did and what he saw or what people think he saw.
Stop in there.
You can pause it here. If ancient civilizations retreated underground, the reasons offered are immense catastrophes, floods, fires, or wars so terrible that retreat into the depths was the only choice for survival. They chose adaptation, building new cities in the dark, and eventually becoming something that no longer needed the surface world at all.
Modern science usually dismisses these myths, but the structure of the Earth itself provides strange complexities. The standard model is layered, crust, mantle, and core, but everything we know about the interior comes from indirect measurements, primarily seismic waves.
You can play that. Scientific diagrams were shown, but we've never actually seen any of it. It's like trying to understand the inside of a locked box by shaking it and listening to the rattle. Sometimes the data simply doesn't fit the models. In 2014, scientists discovered something remarkable. A remarkable massive reservoir of water trapped in the mantle about 400 miles below the surface.
This wasn't liquid water, but water molecules locked inside a mineral called ringwoodite. Some estimates suggest that this underground reservoir holds more water than all the oceans on the surface combined. This discovery challenges everything we thought we knew about the Earth water cycle, raising the question, if that much water is hidden, what else might be down there?
It's true. I mean, we've got some serious questions. Below and beyond the mantle, you can pause it, the Earth's crust is riddled with caves. The Sun Dun Cave in Vietnam is so large, it has its own weather system.
That's bizarre.
We have some images of that, complete with clouds forming inside the cavern. Even the deepest known cave, Krubera Cave in Georgia, not Georgia by Atlanta, but Georgia in Russia area, descends over 7,000 feet, but explorers still haven't reached the bottom. And that's the Sundun Cave. And we've got different images of these massive underground cave systems that literally support life in a different way.
So, and life thrives in these ecosystems of eternal darkness. Scientists discovered a network of caves beneath Antarctica warmed by volcanic activity where life including moss and algae, exist. Furthermore, we know microbes survive miles below the surface, isolated for millions of years, living on chemical energy rather than sunlight, proving that life doesn't need the sun to persist.
If microbes can live that deep, what else might exist? If intelligent species evolved, forced into eternal darkness, they might develop senses we don't possess. Sophisticated echolocation, or the ability to detect magnetic fields and seismic vibrations. They would build their civilizations not upward toward the sky, but downward, measuring progress by how deep they could go.
So if such civilization lived just 10 miles below us in vast, geothermally warmed caverns, we might never detect them. Yet strange reports persist. Low-frequency hums emanating from the ground reported globally in 2011. And in 2018, a strange rhythmic seismic signal circled the globe for 20 minutes, detected by sensors on every continent, striking some researchers as almost artificial, almost like a pulse. While literally natural phenomenon, the regularity of these signals is certainly unsettling.
These mysteries, you can play it, they blur the line between geological fact and persistent legend, moving us closer to the idea that these deep places are not sleeping at all, but actively waiting. So
it's like we've seen some of these movies where you have these like cities literally underneath or in the center of the earth, and they're like fully thriving cities. I think some of these scripts that Hollywood pretend that it's make-believe is actually reality.
It's pretty crazy how these are actually things that people they discount as being possible.
Totally. So no
play it on.
Okay, no place harbors more deep Earth secrets than Antarctica. In 1996, scientists discovered Lake Vostok, a massive body of liquid water sealed beneath 2.5 miles of ice for at least 15 million years. When sampled, the water contained thousands of species of bacteria, many unknown to science, thriving in complete darkness.
The existence of life there proves survival is possible. But anomalies multiply. Satellite imagery has revealed strange, you can pause it, geometric patterns beneath the ice that look artificial. And ancient maps like the 1513 Piri-Reis map, you can play it, appears to show Antarctica's coastline without ice. Data modern explorers didn't accurately map until the 20th century. You can pause it.
This suggests an ancient civilization could have existed in temperate Antarctica before the ice came, and when the ice advanced, they simply went underground, using geothermal heat to survive. Rumors of secret Nazi bases searching for something specific in Antarctica persisted during and after World War II.
You can play it. This culminates in Operation High Jump in 1946. Admiral Byrd led a massive military expedition of over 4,000 personnel that ended abruptly ahead of schedule. Byrd returned and warned that America could be attacked by fighters that could fly from one pole to the other with incredible speed. The details remain classified, leading to speculation that they encountered evidence of an ancient civilization or beings living beneath the ice.
So beyond the poles, we find massive ancient subterranean infrastructures. The discovery of Derinkuyu in Turkey, an 18-story underground city capable of housing 20,000 people, is just one of over 200 such complexes connected by miles of tunnels. The engineering sophistication suggests a level of complexity at odds with a supposed construction period.
How could they build this underground without light?
Or without
Look at that.
power tools.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
It is. It's totally...
And in 2017, not too long ago, a massive unexplained void was discovered inside the Great Pyramid of Giza using cosmic ray imaging. If one of the world's most studied monuments hides empty space, what else is hidden?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm going to play some of it.
So we also have the claims of Juan Moric in Ecuador in the 1960s, who allegedly discovered a massive underground complex filled with metal plates inscribed with unknown writing. After artifacts were examined, the government closed the entrance, declaring the area restricted. The pattern repeats. Discoveries are made, questions are raised, and then silence.
You can pause it. This leads us to the most disturbing thread. The patterns of people vanishing in wilderness areas, often referred to as the missing 411 phenomenon. David Paulides' work documented that experienced hikers disappear from well-traveled trails under impossible circumstances. And I think what's really fascinating is that we visited some of these places.
Yes, we did.
And we felt that energy of some of these places.
Totally.
I mean, it's pretty crazy how some of these national parks, and you can play some of it, are hiding things that they don't want people to see.
The details are consistently strange. Disappearances often occur near boulder fields, caves, or geological anomalies. Search dogs abruptly lose the scent, stopping as if the person simply ceased to exist at the spot.
You can pause it.
Bodies, when found, are often miles away in impossible terrains and sometimes missing clothing or shoes, even in areas previously searched multiple times.
This suggests two horrific possibilities. Either people stumble upon hidden cave entrances that are being blocked off of in our Boston Hill there.
Yep.
That appear and disappear, or something that needs to be remain is taking them. The perfect system would be one where an intelligent civilization could ensure anyone who discovered too much vanished without a trace, camouflaged perfectly by the natural dangers of the wilderness.
And stop for a second. You know, I was thinking, we were walking the other day, and we actually have some video on the Facebook that we took in Boston Hill where we hike. And I just thought right now, that thick fence that they literally have covering. They have a fence with barbed wire, but on this opening, they have this really thick fence draped so that no one could come in or no one could get out.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking, is it not only they're trying to keep people from going in, but maybe they're trying to keep something from going out.
Yeah.
We transition from ancient ruins and missing persons to the specific nature of this hypothetical civilization and its technology.
Miners working at extreme depths have reported strange phenomena, rhythm tapping from beyond the rock face, and glimpses of passages that shouldn't exist. In deep South African mines, you can play it, miners have reported sightings of figures, humanoid, but not quite human, described as tall and thin, with elongated limbs moving silently, and seeming to vanish by slipping through the rock itself.
These reports are usually dismissed as hallucinations caused by heat and pressure. But what about the stories that suggest contact?
You can pause it.
In the 1940s, Richard Shaver claimed to have discovered an entrance to an underground civilization while working in a factory, encountering beings he called Deros, detrimental robots.
You can play it. Shaver claimed these beings possessed advanced technology, and they used it to manipulate surface events. His descriptions of underground technology, devices that could project thoughts and see through solid matter, bore striking similarities to concepts like remote viewing and directed energy weapons that would be developed decades later. You can pause it.
I was just thinking a couple of years back in Bayside in Miami where all those tall,
Oh, yeah.
strange looking alien types that have the entire block and beyond over 500 cops. And they
yeah.
never actually revealed what happened.
No,
but
they
there were
didn't.
videos of these elongated looking beings.
No, they didn't share anything.
It almost like nobody found out what happened. This led some researchers to propose the radical theory that UFOs weren't extraterrestrial, but terrestrial, coming not from other planets, but from inside our own. This theory explains why they are often seen near mountains or bodies of water, places where entrances to the underground world might exist.
Take the modern sightings. In 2004, you can play it, Navy pilots encountered the Tic Tac object off the coast of California. It defied all known physics, accelerating instantly and dropping 60,000 feet to sea level in seconds before vanishing. Later analysis suggested it might have entered the water. Similar USOs, unidentified submerged objects, are detected on sonar moving at impossible speeds beneath the surface. You can pause it.
So, if this civilization exists and possesses technology that manipulates gravitational fields, these impossible movements become merely advanced. The craft that disappear into mountains or waters aren't traveling to other dimensions. They're going home, returning to the depth. They avoid direct contact because they understand that surface humanity, driven by greed and the compulsion to claim everything we can reach, would inevitably come for their resources and territory. Remain hidden is wisdom. And ain't that the truth?
You can come on back to us. But we keep digging. Our technology is rapidly improving, approaching the point where hiding becomes impossible. The Kola Super Deep Borehole project was abandoned, officially due to high temperatures. But rumors persisted that workers heard screams like thousands of voices crying out from the borehole.
That's crazy. So this urban legend taps into the primal fear that if we dig too deep, we might find something that was meant to stay buried. If this civilization technology evolved in isolation for 12,000 years, it would be fundamentally different from ours. They would use geothermal energy, bioluminescence for light, and transport systems optimized for three-dimensional movements through rock.
Their culture would also be fundamentally alien to ours. They think vertically and volumetrically, building their cities up and down. Their relationship with darkness would be one of comfort. With darkness, what was it?
While exposure to...
Oh, but their exposure to darkness and the light, it would be painful for them to see the light.
But the separation might be older than just 12,000 years. What if this civilization is a branch of human evolution that went underground during the youngest, driest period and adapted completely to subterranean life? Perhaps descendants of Neanderthals or another hominoid species? They would be so different that we might not recognize them as related at all.
The question that becomes existential. Are we ready to accept that we are not the sole intelligence of this planet? That the Earth has always been home to more than just us? The idea persists because maybe somewhere in our collective genetic memory, we remember them.
Whether they're sleeping, watching us through means we can't detect, or waiting for us to reach a threshold of maturity before they reveal themselves. And I don't know if that'll ever happen. The fact remains we walk on the thin crust of the Earth, looking up at the stars, oblivious to the world that exists below, or thinking everything's demonic, as most
Right.
Christians do.
And the ground beneath you is not hell,
No.
as you would, and it's not solid, as it seems. The darkness below is not as empty as you think either.
You might feel the weight of all the stone, all that history, all those millions of years of secrets kept in the dark, and wonder if the myths were right all along.
We wanted to dig a little deeper into who Admiral Richard Byrd was, what did he see, and what exactly did he know?
And then we also saw a documentary a while back where the men that went with them were never the same. Some of them literally became crazy.
You can play it.
Okay. Let me go here.
So, Richard Evelyn Byrd was born on October 25th, 1888 in Winchester, Virginia, a town steeped in colonial history and Southern aristocratic tradition. You can pause it. His family was not merely wealthy. They were connected to the foundational narratives of American civilization itself. His ancestor William Byrd II had been a colonial planter and diarist. His grandmother could trace her lineage through John Rolfe and Pocahontas, giving him a bloodline that connected him to the earliest days of European settlement in North America.
But here's what's important. Oh,
Go ahead.
But here's what's important. Byrd was not a man content to rest on inherited prestige. Every psychological profile of the man suggests as individuals driven by an almost pathological need to surpass his family legacy, to achieve something that couldn't be inherited or gifted, something earned through personal bravery and audacity. Byrd attended the Virginia Military Institute from 1903 to 1905, and then entered the United States Naval Academy in 1908, graduating in 1912. He was privileged, athletic, and seemingly destined for a distinguished military career, or destined. But destiny, as it often does, had other plans, and they involved suffering first.
In 1916, while serving on the USS Wyoming, Byrd suffered a severe injury to his right foot. The exact circumstances vary depending on the source, but Byrd broke and subsequently rebroke his foot so badly that military physicians declared him medically unfit for sea duty and ineligible for promotion. For a naval officer of that era, this was essentially a career death sentence. He was medically retired while still a young man. Relegated to administrative duties, his military future is seemingly over. Most men in Byrd's position would have accepted their fate. They would have taken a graceful desk job and lived out their careers in quiet disappointment, but Byrd was not most men. Contemporaries who knew him described him as obsessive, competitive, and possessing an almost supernatural drive to achieve the impossible. During World War I, while unable to serve at sea, Byrd trained as a naval aviator, earning his pilot wings on April 17, 1918. This was the pivot point in his life. Aviation in 1918 was still experimental, dangerous, and operated by men who were more test pilots than conventional military aviators. But Byrd saw in aviation a path to redemption, a way to prove that his physical limitations didn't define his capabilities. More importantly, he saw in aviation a tool that could accomplish something that had eluded explorers for centuries, reaching Earth's remotest and most inaccessible regions.
After the war, Byrd remained in military aviation. He participated in the first transatlantic flight in 1919, though not as a pilot or a commander. He served on various assignments that kept him in the aviation world, but on the periphery of fame. Throughout the early 1920s, Byrd was consolidating skills, building connections, and positioning himself for one massive achievement that would catapult him into legend. By 1925, Byrd had caught the attention of wealthy industrialists and prominent military leaders who saw in him the perfect man to lead their polar ambition. He possessed the necessary aviation skills, the navigation expertise, the personal connection to the highest level of power, and perhaps most importantly, the absolute conviction that he could accomplish anything he set his mind to. This last quality, this almost irrational self-belief, would define his entire career.
In the summer of 1925, Byrd joined Arctic veteran Donald B. McMillan on an expedition to Greenland and the Arctic. The expedition was by most accounts a disaster. Equipment failures, tempers flared, interpersonal conflicts erupted. But Byrd was learning about polar navigation, about cold weather survival, about the practical challenges of extreme environment operations. He was also studying how expeditions actually function, what leadership meant in settings where conventional hierarchy broke down, and how to manage personality conflicts and resource scarcity. This 1925 expedition was, in many ways, Byrd's real training ground. It was not a successful mission, but it was a crucial education. When Byrd returned from England, he was ready for something bigger. He was ready for the North Pole.
Do we have something?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so on May 9th, 1926, Admiral Richard Byrd claimed to accomplish something that would define his public legacy, the first flight over the North Pole. This wasn't a landing. This wasn't a landing. It was an overflight, a circular flight over the actual geographic North Pole, 90 degrees north latitude, in an aircraft that was, by 1926 standards, remarkably fragile and prone to mechanical failure. The context for this attempt is crucial. Just days earlier, Roald Amundsen and Umberto Noble had completed a transpolar flight in an airship. The competitive atmosphere was intense. Multiple nations were invested resources in polar aviation. The North Pole represented not just a geographic achievement, but a propaganda victory, proof of national technological superiority during an era when such things matter enormously. He was in an airship. You know how they got...
He wasn't.
Or that other...
Roald and...
That came to mind, that they got rid of all these airships. And I wonder that the reason they got rid of these airships, because you could probably see a lot more...
Or go a lot
further than you would with the airplanes.
So Byrd's plane, as we see in this picture, was a Fokker, you can leave it there, tri-motor aircraft nicknamed the Josephine Ford, named after Edsel Ford's daughter. Ford had provided substantial financial backing, interesting, the elites backed the expedition. The crew consisted of Byrd, pilot Floyd Bennett, radio man George Novell, and photographer William Haynes. The plan was to depart from Spitsbergen, Norway, fly north toward the pole, circle over it, to take photographs and readings, and then return. On May 8th, 1926, at 9:37 p.m. exactly, the Josephine Ford took off from Kings Bay, Spitsbergen. I love that name, Spitsbergen. The temperature was far below zero, so nowhere that Mark and Lynna would like to go. And the aircraft was loaded with equipment, fuel, and survival gear. For the next 16 hours, the plane flew north through Arctic conditions. According to Byrd's official account, the aircraft reached the North Pole at 9:02 Greenwich Civil Time on May 9th, 1926. Byrd recorded taking navigational observations, photographs, and conducting various measurements. The flight was successful. The aircraft returned safely to Spitsbergen, and Byrd was a hero.
Except, and here's where the story becomes interesting, many of the details don't quite add up. Byrd's calculations show they reached the North Pole, but his navigation relied on dead reckoning, calculating their position based on direction and speed traveled, with no way to independently verify their actual location. In polar regions, magnetic compasses become unreliable as you approach the magnetic poles, which are offset from geographic poles. Traditional navigational techniques become difficult or impossible. Furthermore, Byrd's flight records show that the aircraft was experiencing mechanical problems. The bearing on one of the engines was heating up dangerously. There's debate among historians about whether Byrd's team actually reached the North Pole or whether they flew south of it, though they were at it and returned without ever reaching their stated destination.
In 2016, scholar Dennis Rollins published research suggesting that Byrd's flight fell short of the North Pole by as much as 80 miles. According to Rollins' analysis, Byrd's navigation calculations had systematic errors that would have resulted in his aircraft being well south of the pole when he believed he was above it. Byrd's own diary, discovered in 1996 in the Ohio State University archives, contains entries about these problems. The diary shows Byrd recording engine troubles, navigation uncertainty, and concern about fuel levels, I would imagine. Yet Byrd's public reports after the flight made no mention of these doubts. He was certain, or at least he claimed to be certain, that he had reached the pole. Here is what is crucial. Whether or not Byrd actually reached the North Pole, the National Geographic Society investigated his claims and endorsed them. Congress awarded him the Medal of Honor. The American public believed he was a hero. The myth was established and would remain unchallenged for decades.
But this raises a question that historians still debate. Did Byrd deliberately misrepresent his achievement, or was he simply mistaken about his own navigation? Did he truly believe he reached the pole based on faulty calculations, or did he know he fell short and maintain a false claim for publicity and prestige? The answer to these questions matters because it establishes a pattern. If Byrd was willing to exaggerate or falsify achievements early in his career for public acclaim, what else might he have misrepresented? What else might not be true in his official record?
The ambiguity follows Byrd through his entire life. He becomes what researchers call an unreliable narrator of his own experiences. We can't be certain which of his claims are accurate, which are embellished, exaggerated, or entirely fabricated. This creates a space, a gap in our certainty where speculation can flourish. But Byrd's true achievements, the ones that are verifiable and undeniable, were about to begin, because after the North Pole, Byrd set his sights on something even more ambitious, Antarctica. And there, in the southern extreme of our planet, his expeditions would accomplish things that were genuinely revolutionary and would raise questions that have never been adequately answered.
Stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. If Byrd's North Pole achievement was built partly on mystique and
You just
possible...
went back, way back.
Oh, did I?
Yeah,
Oh, no.
way back. Oh, you can keep going. Yeah. You're too far.
Okay. I don't know what I hit. Is it there?
No.
Back?
Yeah. Sorry, folks.
Okay, I think... There.
Keep going. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to hit it and let it go. So, let's see. I guess I must have okay. If Byrd's North Pole achievement was built partly on mystique and possible exaggeration, his Antarctic expeditions were built on genuine accomplishment. Between 1928 and 1956, Byrd conducted 5 major Antarctic expeditions that fundamentally transformed human knowledge of the continent and demonstrated operational capabilities that were genuinely remarkable for the era.
You can pause it.
Hold on, no. The first expedition, which departed New York.
You can pause that.
Okay,
because we're not on that yet.
Okay. The first expedition, which departed New York Harbor in August 1928, was privately funded by Byrd's wealthy backers, a group that included Henry Ford, Edsel Ford, John D. Rockefeller Jr., and other American industrial titans. Byrd assembled a fleet of 3 ships, the City of New York, the Eleanor Bolling, and the support ship Caledon. The expedition included over 80 men, 3 aircrafts, numerous sled dogs, and equipment valued at approximately $3 million, a staggering sum for 1928.
You can come back to us. The logistics alone were extraordinary. The expedition carried over 600 tons of supplies. Every piece of food, every tool, every fuel barrel had to be transported thousands of miles across the Southern Ocean to the Antarctic continent. Once there, the team would establish a base on the Ross Ice Shelf, an attempt to conduct scientific research, aerial exploration, and mapping during the limited Antarctic summer season. Byrd's choice of base location was strategically brilliant. The Ross Ice Shelf is a massive floating platform of ice the size of Spain, if you can believe it, jetting out into the Ross Sea. It provided a relatively accessible location for establishing a base camp, what Byrd named Little America. Oh, gee. This base would become the template for all future Antarctic research stations.
Little America was not merely a tent camp. It was a sophisticated installation designed to be self-sufficient and capable of supporting year-round operations. The base included sleeping quarters for the expedition members, kitchen and dining facilities, laboratory spaces for scientific research, radio communication equipment capable of transmitting back to the United States, workshops and repair facilities, storage areas for food, fuel, and equipment, power generation equipment. More importantly, Little America had a communication capability that was almost unprecedented for its era. Radio operators could transmit messages and receive responses from the United States across a distance of over 11,000 miles. This was revolutionary. For the first time in Antarctica exploration, expeditions had real-time communication with the outside world. Byrd's team could report their activities, request guidance, and maintain connections with civilizations while operating in one of Earth's most isolated environments.
From Little America, Byrd conducted multiple expeditions into the interior of Antarctica. In December 1928, his teams began aerial reconnaissance, using aircraft to explore regions that had never been seen by human eyes. Between December 1928 and February of 1930, Byrd's aircraft conducted hundreds of flights over previously uncharted territory, photographing the landscape, taking navigational readings, and gathering geological data. Then came the achievement that would define this first expedition, the first flight over the South Pole.
On November 28, 1929, Byrd led a crew of 4, including pilot Bernd Balchen, co-pilot Harold June, and photographer Ashley McKinley, in a Ford tri-motor aircraft towards the South Pole. The flight covered approximately 1,600 miles round trip across some of Earth's most hostile terrain. The journey was extraordinarily dangerous as the aircraft approached the Transantarctic Mountains, an immense mountain range that rises to over 14,000 feet. The plane had difficulty gaining sufficient altitude to clear that peak. The thin Antarctic air provides less lift for the wings. The engines designed for lower altitude struggled. Byrd made a critical decision. He ordered the crew to jettison 250 pounds of emergency food supplies to lighten the aircraft sufficiently to clear the mountains. This was an incredibly risky choice. If the aircraft developed problems and had to emergency land in the Antarctic interior, the loss of those emergency rations could have been fatal. But Byrd judged the risk acceptable. The aircraft climbed above the mountains, crossed the polar plateau, and reached the geographic South Pole.
According to accounts, when the aircraft reached the South Pole, Byrd had the pilot make a circular flight around the pole position, allowing photographer McKinley to take photographs. Byrd took navigational observations. The plane then turned toward Little America for the return journey. The flight took 18 hours and 41 minutes total. When Byrd returned to Little America and reported success, his team erupted in celebration. He had accomplished something no human being had ever previously achieved, a flight over the South Pole. The achievement was verified, celebrated, and became one of the most defining moments of Byrd's career.
What's significant here is that unlike the North Pole achievement, the South Pole flight has been verified and accepted as genuine by historians and scientists. The photographs are taken and preserved. The navigational records have been analyzed. There's no serious dispute about whether Byrd reached the South Pole. He did. This was a genuine achievement. But Byrd's Antarctic expedition involved more than polar flights. Over the course of his 5 major Antarctic expeditions, he established bases, conducted scientific research, and mapped over 450,000 square miles of previously unknown territory. He became, in many senses, the man who revealed Antarctica to the world.
Between his first Antarctic expedition and his later ones, Byrd survived multiple near-death experiences. During his third Antarctic expedition, 1934-35, he volunteered to spend the Antarctic winter alone at an advanced weather observation station on the Ross Ice Shelf, a place he called Bowling Advanced Weather Base. For months, Byrd lived in complete isolation in a small underground chamber, conducting meteorological observations and maintaining radio contact with Little America. During this time, Byrd was slowly poisoned by carbon monoxide leaking from his stove. He became increasingly ill, delirious, and weak. His radio messages became incoherent. By the time a rescue team reached him, Byrd was on the verge of death. He survived, but barely, and spent months recovering from the poisoning.
After this incident, Byrd's health was compromised. But he didn't stop. He led more expeditions. He became a public figure of immense stature, writing books, giving lectures, and appearing on radio broadcasts. He was the face of polar exploration for an entire generation of Americans. His courage, his achievements, his willingness to risk his life for exploration and discovery, this made him a cultural icon. But there's something else happening in Byrd's life during these years, something that rarely gets discussed in mainstream accounts. Byrd was developing a particular obsession. What lay beneath Antarctica? Were there undiscovered regions hidden under the ice? Was there geological significance to Antarctic valleys and formations that nobody fully understood? Did Antarctica harbor secrets that were more significant than the mere ice and rock?
There are cryptic references in Byrd's later writings to discoveries, quote unquote, he made in Antarctica that were significant but unexplained. There are mentions of unusual geological formations, of theories about Earth's interior that he entertained but never publicly promoted. There are hints that Byrd believed Antarctica was more than just a frozen continent, that it might be a gateway to something else. These suggestions would take on greater significance when, after World War II, Byrd was tapped to lead a military expedition to Antarctica that was unlike anything ever attempted before. An expedition that would officially last only 3 months, yet would result in immediate efforts to seal off an entire continent from military and territorial activity. That expedition was Operation High Jump, and its true objectives, its actual discoveries, and the reasons for its abrupt termination remain among the greatest mysteries in modern history.
Believe 45 joins us. She said, hello and happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. So during World War II, Nazi Germany maintained a relatively active presence in Antarctica, or at least attempted to. German submarines penetrated Antarctic waters. There were German researcher stations and supply caches established at various locations. The Nazi, like other powers, recognized that Antarctica might be strategically significant. But more significantly, for understanding Operation High Jump, the post-war period saw dramatic technological advances and changing strategic perspectives. After 1945, American military planners were obsessed with one question: what would come next? The Soviet Union was emerging as a rival superpower. The atomic bomb had introduced an entirely new dimension to military strategy, and there were still vast regions of the Earth that had not been fully explored or claimed. Antarctica, with its remoteness and its potential for strategic positioning, became increasingly important in military planning discussions. The U.S. Navy began considering how to establish dominance in the Antarctic waters, how to prevent Soviet expansion into the region, and how to conduct research into Antarctic conditions that might be relevant for military operations in cold weather environments.
You can play it.
Okay.
Up to that.
Okay, so let me go here.
Whoa, dropped my phone.
Okay.
So by 1946, plans were being made for a massive military expedition to Antarctica. The official objectives were scientific and exploratory: to map uncharted regions, to conduct geological surveys, to test equipment in extreme conditions, and to establish a U.S. military presence on the continent. But there were also strategic objectives: to claim territory, to establish bases, and to prevent Soviet encroachment. In August 1946, Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, Chief of Naval Operations, announced Operation High Jump. It was to be the largest military expedition ever sent to Antarctica. The scope was staggering: 13 ships, 33 aircraft, 4,700 military personnel, helicopters, a relatively new technology at the time, advanced electronic equipment, months of planned operations.
Okay, so Byrd was appointed to command the expedition, though he would share command with Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen. Byrd, now in his late 50s, was once again stepping into a role that would define a chapter of his life.
Pause that.
The expedition was scheduled to depart in December 1946 and operate through the Antarctic summer season, with planned operations lasting approximately 12 to 13 months. The scale, scope, and expense were extraordinary, rivaling the cost and scale of small wars.
Operation High Jump was officially divided into 3 task forces. Number 1, the Western Group, commanded by Rear Admiral John H. Kronsky, tasked with surveying the western coast of Antarctica. The Central Group, commanded by Rear Admiral Cruzen, tasked with establishing a base, Little America 4, and conducting an inland exploration. The Eastern Group tasked with surveying the eastern coast. The three groups would operate simultaneously, gathering data, taking photographs, and conducting surveys of previously unmapped regions. The operation was to be the most comprehensive exploration of Antarctica since Byrd's earlier explorations.
But there are significant anomalies in the official record. Multiple historical sources note that Operation High Jump was characterized by unclear objectives, confused command structures, and inadequate preparation. Many of the military personnel involved reported feeling that they didn't fully understand why they were being sent to Antarctica or what they were supposed to accomplish. Additionally, the official records of the Operation High Jump are remarkably sparse. For an expedition of this magnitude involving thousands of military personnel, detailed records or activities are surprisingly limited. What happened? What was discovered? What data was collected? The official record provides only vague summaries.
That's crazy.
Well, we know they're hiding something.
You can go back to us. This opacity is itself suspicious. I mean, military operations of this scale generate enormous documentation. But the documentation from Operation High Jump seems to have been compartmentalized, classified, or simply lost.
Yep.
Some researchers have spent decades attempting to piece together accurate information about what actually occurred during those months in Antarctic waters.
Operation High Jump departed from Norfolk, Virginia in late December 1946. The massive fleet transisted south through the Atlantic, rounded Cape Horn, and entered Antarctic waters in January 1947. The expedition reached the Ross Ice Shelf and began establishing Little America V, a new base on the ice shelf that would serve as the operational headquarters for the expedition. By February 1947, all three task forces were conducting their assigned operations. Aircrafts were flying reconnaissance missions over previously unmapped regions. The helicopter, still a relatively experimental aircraft in 1947, was being tested in Antarctic conditions for the first time. Teams were collecting geological samples, taking photographs, and establishes observation posts. According to official records, the expedition was successful. Hundreds of thousands of photographs were taken, extensive mapping was conducted, geological data was collected. The operation proceeded largely as planned.
But then, abruptly, Operation High Jump was cut short. In early 1947 of February, just 6 weeks, only 6 weeks, into what was planned as a 13-month operation, orders came to terminate the expedition and begin withdrawal. Official records cite severe ice conditions and equipment failures as the reason for the early termination. Certainly, Antarctic conditions are brutally difficult. Ice conditions can change rapidly and become impassable. Equipment does fail in extreme cold. These are not unreasonable explanations on their surface, but here's the problem. The ice conditions in February 1947 were not some unusually severe situation. Historical records of Antarctic ice conditions for that period show that February weather was within normal parameters. Furthermore, multiple historical sources note that the expedition had been scheduled to operate for up to 13 months, meaning the fleet and personnel were equipped and provisioned for extended operations in Antarctic conditions.
So why would an expedition specifically designed and provisioned for 13 months of Antarctic operation be terminated after just 6 weeks? The official explanations don't fully satisfy scrutiny. What particularly intrigued is that Byrd himself, in statements made after the expedition returned to the United States, made some cryptic remarks about what had been encountered. In some accounts, Byrd apparently made references to enemy forces, quote unquote, operating in Antarctica, to aircrafts that could fly pole to pole in moments. These statements were made in informal settings and were not widely publicized at the time, but they existed in historical records and have been cited by researchers investigating the expedition. The question is, what could Byrd have meant by these references? What enemy forces would be operating in Antarctica in February of 1947? The Soviet Union was not yet actively engaged in Antarctica. Nazi Germany had been defeated months earlier. Was Byrd referring to something else entirely, something not typically categorized as forces in conventional military terminology?
After Operation High Jump returned to the United States, Byrd gave a press conference in Washington, D.C., in which he discussed the expedition's achievements. But according to various accounts, certain portions of the press conference were notably absent from official records. Questions about what the expedition had encountered were deflected or left unanswered. Within months of High Jump's return, diplomatic discussions began about an international agreement regarding Antarctica. We can play some of that up to this point right here. By 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was signed. The treaty fundamentally transformed Antarctica from a region open to territorial claims and military operations into a demilitarized scientific preserve. The speed with which this agreement was negotiated is striking. In 1947, just after Operation High Jump, no such treaty existed. By 1959, not only was a treaty in place, but the superpowers had agreed to exclude military activity, prohibit territorial expansion, ban nuclear testing, and allow international inspections of research facilities.
This rapid shift from military interest in Antarctica to international agreement to seal it off suggests that something occurred during Operation High Jump that prompted this change in policy. What was it? Some researchers have speculated that Byrd's team discovered evidence of advanced Nazi bases or technology remnants, ancient civilization or artifacts, unusual geological features, non-human intelligence or technology, unusual electromagnetic phenomenon, access points to subterranean regions. The problem is that we have no definite evidence for any of these theories. What we have instead is a constellation of anomalies, unexplained statements, missing documents, and the sudden international agreement to seal off the continent. The Antarctic Treaty itself is not inherently suspicious. It's been effective at preventing military conflict and preserving Antarctica for scientific research. But the motivation for negotiating it so rapidly after Operation High Jump remains unclear.
Byrd died in 1957. Just 2 years before the Antarctic Treaty was signed. He never publicly explained his cryptic references to what High Jump encountered. His personal papers archived at Ohio State University contain materials related to his Antarctic expeditions, but they don't provide clear answers about Operation High Jump's true objectives or discoveries. What we are left with is an incomplete historical record. We know Operation High Jump happened. We know it was massive. We know it was terminated early. We know Byrd made cryptic statements about encounters. We know an international treaty sealing off Antarctica was signed shortly after. But the connective tissue, the actual explanation for what happened and why, remains hidden in classified military records that have not yet been released to the public.
Admiral Byrd remains, even in death, an enigmatic figure. His achievements were real, particularly his Antarctic explorations. But his later life, his involvement with Operation High Jump, and what he encountered or learned in Antarctica form a narrative that is incomplete, mysterious, and tantalizing. Did he discover something in Antarctica that changed geopolitical calculations? Did he encounter evidence that would overturn historical understanding? Did he learn about subterranean access points of underground civilizations? We may never know with certainty, but we can say this. Byrd's life pattern suggests a man who was simultaneously a genius, a genuine explorer and achiever, and someone who was willing to exaggerate, misrepresent, or conceal the truth when it served his purposes. This ambiguity is precisely what makes his story relevant to our larger investigation of hidden realities and sealed secrets.
So,
Do we do it?
yeah, you can change it. Shift our geographic focus thousands of miles from Antarctica to a place that I love called Mount Shasta in Northern California.
Yep.
It's a volcanic peak that rises 14,179 feet above surrounding terrain. Mount Shasta is not merely, you can pause it, a geological formation. For thousands of years, it's been a nexus point for spiritual, cultural, and metaphysical significance across multiple traditions and peoples. The mountain looms over the landscape in a manner that seems almost supernatural. Visible from over 100 miles away on clear days, it is perpetually snow-capped, almost perpetually snow-capped, because we didn't see it being that.
Yeah.
Seeming to float above the surrounding forests and valleys.
Yeah, we spent a good week there.
We did, and loved that place.
Yeah. So from a geological standpoint, Mount Shasta is a stratovolcano, a composite volcano built up by many layers of hardened lava, pumice, ash, and rock. The mountain has erupted multiple times in recorded history, most recently in 1786. The peak is surrounded by glaciers and deep valleys carved by ancient volcanic activity. The subterranean geology of Mount Shasta is complex. It's built over a magma chamber that extends deep into the Earth's crust. The mountain essentially sits atop of a gateway to the interior of our planet. Native peoples, particularly the Yana, Wintu, and Klamath, and other tribal nations indigenous to Northern California, held Mount Shasta as sacred. In their traditions, the mountain was understood to be inhabited by spiritual beings of great power. It was a place where the earthly and the spiritual realms touched. Certain individuals with specific spiritual attainment were said to be able to access the mountain's interior and commune with beings dwelling within.
European settlers arrived in the region in the early 1800s. Some early explorers, miners, and settlers reported encounters in the Mount Shasta region that they struggled to explain. Lights in the sky, tall figures, and suggestions of habitation in caves and ravines where no permanent settlements existed. By the late 1800s and early 1900s, Mount Shasta had become a focal point for esoteric traditions. Madame Blavatsky's Theosophical movement taught that Mount Shasta was one of the gateways to the Lemuria, an ancient continent that, according to the Theosophical doctrine, had been inhabited by advanced spiritual beings who, when their continent sank beneath the Pacific Ocean, retreated into vast subterranean cities to preserve their civilization and wisdom.
Blavatsky claimed that Mount Shasta, along with a few other sacred mountains on Earth, contained entrances to these underground cities. The spiritual beings, the Lemurians, had supposedly established a network of underground civilizations beneath various mountains on different continents. Mount Shasta was one such network. Agartha, supposedly located in Central Asia beneath the Himalayas, was another. There were theorized to be others in different locations. Blavatsky's teachings, while unusual, fit into a broader pattern of 19th century spiritualism and esotericism. Her ideas influenced numerous spiritual movements and attracted followers who were fascinated by the prospect of hidden civilization, lost wisdom, and spiritual beings existing in dimensional spaces or in physical hidden locations accessible only to those with proper spiritual development.
But Mount Shasta's association with hidden civilizations isn't limited to theosophical teachings. It's deeply rooted in Native American traditions that predate Blavatsky by centuries. The Klamath tradition speaks of Chief Skell, a benevolent spirit being who dwelt on Mount Shasta. The Yana and Wintu traditions reference subterranean peoples and beings of power dwelling within the mountain. What's striking is that these indigenous traditions developed independently without contact with theosophical teachings, describe similar phenomena: underground beings, advanced spiritual knowledge, and Mount Shasta as a primary location of this underground civilization.
More stuff?
Yeah. All the way to this point.
Okay. The most intriguing historical account associated with Mount Shasta is the story of J.C. Brown, an English prospector, who in the early 1900s allegedly discovered a vast network of underground tunnels and chambers beneath Mount Shasta. According to the account, Brown was conducting prospective activities in Mount Shasta's region when he fell into what appeared to be an artificially concealed entrance to a tunnel system. Once inside, Brown discovered what he described as an elaborated underground city or network of chambers. According to Brown's account, he found perfectly carved tunnels showing evidence of sophisticated engineering, chambers of enormous proportions. Some appear to be temples or civic spaces, ancient artifacts, including tablets covered in unknown writing, treasures, including gold and precious stones, the mummified remains of enormous beings, humanoids but distinctly non-human in certain proportions, evidence that this underground city had been deliberately concealed and hidden from the surface world.
Brown was so convinced of his discovery that he determined to mount an expedition to fully explore and document the tunnels and retrieve artifacts. In 1924, he arranged a press conference at the Mount Shasta Resort to publicly announce his discovery and his intentions to lead a documented expedition to the tunnels. According to various accounts of this press conference, Brown displayed some physical evidence, presumably artifacts or photographs, that convinced observers that his discovery was genuine. He claimed to have reliable maps and access points to the tunnel system. He was planning an expedition that would photograph, document, and retrieve artifacts from the underground city.
And then he disappeared. After the 1924 press conference, J.C. Brown reportedly attempted to return to the tunnels. Some accounts say he went back to England. Others claim he returned to Mount Shasta to continue exploring. But definitely, he vanished from public record. No one ever saw him again. The documented exploration of the tunnels never occurred. No artifacts were retrieved. No photograph evidence was published. In its place, there is only the legend. J.C. Brown became a figure in Mount Shasta lore, the mysterious prospector who found the underground city and disappeared into it, unable or unwilling to return to the surface world.
Some researchers suggest that J.C. Brown was hoaxing the discovery, that he was an opportunist looking for publicity or attempting to generate financial backing for various schemes. Without definitive evidence to the contrary, this skeptical interpretation is difficult to refute. But others argue that Brown had genuinely discovered something, a real network of tunnels or chambers, and that his disappearance was not voluntary. According to some accounts, Brown was either killed by people seeking to keep the tunnel secret, or he was taken by the beings who inhabited the underground city. This latter interpretation aligns with indigenous traditions that speak of certain individuals being taken by the beings within Mount Shasta, spirited away into the mountain as either punishment or initiation. And one of the interesting things that I remember from our time in Mount Shasta, we were doing some research at the time and watching some videos, YouTube videos, and they said that at some point where the tree line ends is when Native parents tell their children not to venture any further up into Mount Shasta because of the bad spirits.
Exactly. And the truth is that we don't know what happened to J.C. Brown. The historical record is incomplete. What we have is tantalizing account of a discovery, followed by mysterious disappearance and silence. But the disappearance itself creates a kind of historical gap, a space where certainty ends and speculation begins. And in that space, theory flourishes. More?
Yeah. Since the early 1900s, since J.C. Brown's announcement and disappearance, Mount Shasta has been an epicenter for reported encounters with non-ordinary phenomena. These reports have escalated and diversified over time, but they share common elements. Sightings of tall, robed humanoid figures, often described as luminous or semi-transparent, you can pause it. These figures reportedly appear suddenly, move in anomalous ways, sometimes appearing to glide or hover rather than walk, and vanish just as mysteriously as they appeared. Encounters with beings who seem to communicate telepathically or through a direct mind-to-mind contact. Individuals who have reported these encounters describe receiving knowledge, guidance, or warnings directly into their consciousness. UFO sightings in the Mount Shasta region, aircraft of unknown origin, engaged in unusual flight patterns and maneuvers that suggest technological capabilities beyond conventional aviation. Disappearances, individuals and groups venturing into certain areas of Mount Shasta, thankfully we weren't taken, and vanishing without a trace, sometimes reappearing weeks or months later with no memory of missing time or having traversed seemingly impossible distances. Electromagnetic anomalies, reports of technology malfunctions, compass inconsistencies, and sudden disorientation in specific zones within the mountain.
Throughout the 20th century, spiritual seekers, New Age practitioners, UFO researchers, and paranormal investigators have been drawn to Mount Shasta based on these reports. They've conducted vigils, meditations, and investigative missions. Most have experienced nothing anomalous, but some have reported their own encounters with the phenomenon described above. What's significant is the consistencies of these reports. They come from the different time periods, different individuals with no connection to each other, and from people with varying degrees of credibility and physiological stability or psychological stability. A person reporting a UFO sighting at Mount Shasta in 1960 might not have known about similar sighting in 1972 or 1985. Yet, the descriptions are similar. A hiker in 1995 reporting electromagnetic anomalies and disorientation is unlikely to have read accounts from 1960s, yet they describe identical phenomenon.
This consistency across time and independent sources is either a sign that genuine phenomena are occurring at Mount Shasta, or it's evidence of a persistent cultural narrative that influences how people interpret ambiguous experiences in that location. The truth is almost certainly more complex than either interpretation alone can account for. Mount Shasta is a location where natural geological and meteorological phenomena could produce unusual effects. The mountain is home to powerful electromagnetic fields due to its mineral content and geological activity. The thin air at high altitude can produce altered consciousness states. Disorientation and hallucinations are well-known effects of high-altitude exposure. Add to this the cultural narrative about Lemuria, ancient civilizations, and spiritual beings dwelling within the mountain. People visiting Mount Shasta are primed by this narrative to interpret unusual phenomena as evidence of something mysterious and transcendent.
But even accounting for all of this, there remain reports that don't fit neatly into conventional explanations. There are disappearances that are objectively documented, missing person reports, search and rescue operations, bodies never found. There are physical artifacts, alleged Lemurian artifacts, held in private collections that don't fit standard categorization. Mount Shasta remains what it has always been, a threshold, a boundary space where the ordinary and the extraordinary seem to touch. Whether one interprets the phenomenon occurring there through a spiritual lens or a psychological lens or a scientific lens depends partly on one's existing beliefs and worldview. What's indisputable is that Mount Shasta has become in the modern era a nexus point for alternative narratives about Earth hidden history, underground civilization, and non-human intelligence. It's a place where mainstream institutions and alternative seekers part ways in their interpretation of reality.
You know, it's amazing after visiting that place, and we almost got to spend the night up at the top, but we couldn't find a place to camp. We were trying to find a campground out there and stuff, but we wanted to, you can pause it, we wanted to like really understand and capture the essence of the area and to go hiking into some of these areas where they said people had experiences and stuff. And it was cut short, sadly.
There was fire also.
There was terrible fire
Yeah.
on the way down. We saw it getting darker.
But even in the places that we did go, because we did like drink from the water and did climb up to see the mountain, near the mountain, we felt something in the region. I mean, there was a part where we walked through the woods and I could feel something.
Oh yeah.
You know,
all the mushrooms too. In 2010, former police...
there were mushrooms on the ground. Not the psilocybins or any of that stuff. It was just...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just...
That's true.
You know, and I don't think they would be edible.
Right.
Yeah. So in 2010, former police officer David Paulige began compiling data about disappearances in wilderness areas, particularly in national park across North America. What he discovered was so unusual, so patterned, so difficult to explain through conventional means that it led him to dedicate nearly 2 decades to documenting and investigating the phenomenon. Paulides identified over 64 distinct geographic clusters where disappearances occur at statistically improbable rates. He began publishing the Missing 411 book series, documenting hundreds of cases with methodical, detailed research.
And you can go up until that point right there.
Okay.
What makes Paulides' work significant is his emphasis on the unusual characteristics of these disappearances, circumstances and patterns that don't fit conventional explanations. His database includes cases where missing individuals were found miles away from where they disappeared, having allegedly traversed terrain that would require days to cross in a matter of hours. Missing children were located in areas that had been searched extensively with no evidence of the missing person. Individuals reappeared with no memory of missing time or unable to explain their movements. Search dogs lost the scent at specific boundaries and refused to cross certain areas. GPS devices malfunctioned or gave impossible readings. Radio communications failed in cluster zone areas. Missing individuals were found in terrain that seemed physically impassable for their age or abilities. Some disappearances occurred under conditions where escape or wandering off seems essentially impossible.
So Valley 45 asked, did either one of us feel anything at Mount Shasta? I felt in certain spots through the woodsy area that we walked, in our campground as well. There was something, that...
I think you mentioned that you felt like it was a place of the little people.
Yeah. When we walked through the woods, I kind of felt the energy of like the little people and like, what's not Bigfoot, but Sasquatch and the energy of all sorts of like things. The trees were very communicative.
Yeah,
they were. So Paulides emphasizes that he is not promoting any particular explanation. He's simply documenting data and asking questions. What the data reveals, however, is that a significant subset of wilderness disappearance don't conform to conventional explanations like getting lost due to disorientation, accidental falls or injuries, predation by wildlife, hypothermia or environmental exposure, suicide or voluntary disappearance. Instead, many of the undocumented cases involve circumstances that seem fundamentally mysterious. How did the person get where they were found? Why were they found in areas previously searched? How did they traverse impossible terrain? Why can't they remember what happened?
Paulides identified specific national parks that have significantly higher disappearance rates than national norms would predict. Yosemite National Park, for example, has over 30 documented missing persons cases. Mount Rainier in Washington has over 400. The Grand Canyon region logs hundreds. Shenandoah has numerous cases. These aren't just numbers. These are individual human beings who have vanished under mysterious circumstances. Each case, when examined individually, might seem like a tragic accident or the result of individual factors, but when examined collectively, a pattern emerges that suggests something systematic is occurring, something that transcends individual circumstances.
I'm also thinking there could possibly be some sort of, nothing, I said visual cue there.
No, not yet.
No, not yet. Some sort of portal, in a lot of these places where people could be hiking. And I could sense it because there were times where you could almost sense like there could be a possible portal or different energy source that doesn't come from this particular planet, So let's examine specific cases that illustrate the anomalous nature of many wilderness disappearance. Case number 1, Trina Hunt, Yosemite National Park, August 1998.
You can show that.
Okay, so let me go here because it's hard to talk and do this at the same
time. And then
time.
you can stop here.
Well, I'm reading, so I can't tell. Trina Hunt was a 23-year-old woman who was part of a hiking group in Yosemite National Park. The group was hiking near the Lesh Pass, a trail that has been associated with numerous disappearance and tragedies over the years. At some point during the hike, Trina separated from her group. A massive search operation was launched immediately. Dozens of search and rescue personnel, helicopters, tracking dogs, and volunteers scoured the area where Trina was last seen. For weeks, nothing was found. The search covered an area of hundreds of square miles. Rangers interviewed other hikers, Helicopter crews flew over the terrain from multiple altitudes and angles. Dogs searched for any scent of the missing woman. Then, on August 14th, nearly 2 weeks after Trina disappeared, a park ranger on a routine patrol near a cedar tree found Trina's body lying on the ground. She was only a few miles from where she disappeared. Most importantly, she was only 3 miles from the trail. The shocking aspect, the area where Trina was found had been searched repeatedly during the intensive search operations. Search teams had passed through that same general area multiple times. How did they miss the body? It wasn't hidden. It wasn't concealed. It was lying in relatively open ground. The implications, either the body wasn't there during earlier searches and somehow appeared later, the body was there but was somehow invisible to searchers who passed by. There's a systemic failure in search and rescue methodology. None of these possibilities are comforting.
Yeah, it's amazing just how the things just don't add up.
No.
You know, we have these cases where literally they searched within a simple range, and like it's like right down the street, and they would have combed that area with dogs, with searchers, you know, people trying to find.
It's almost like she was taken and then placed back.
Yeah, it is. So the next case is Peter Jackson. We can go on to that one and stop it whenever we're done with Peter Jackson.
Okay.
It's right here, this image.
Okay.
Peter Jackson was a 75-year-old man. No, that's not Peter Jackson. I'm sorry.
That's not Peter Jackson?
Yeah, you can pause it after that. Peter Jackson was a 75-year-old man who went hiking near White Wolf Campground in Yosemite in September 2016. He did not return to his campsite. A search was initiated. Despite extensive searching by personnel from National Park Service, sheriff's departments, and volunteer search and rescue teams, no trace of Peter Jackson was found. In August 2019, nearly 3 years later, his backpack was discovered in the Ackerson Meadow area, several miles from where he had disappeared. But Peter Jackson himself was never found. No remains, no clothing, no evidence of what became of him. The timeline is remarkable. 3 years of intervening time before any evidence appears. The location of the backpack is also curious. It was found in an area that had been searched during the initial intensive search operations. Why didn't searchers find it in 2016 when they were actively looking? Why did it suddenly appear in 2019? So we have Floyd Roberts is the next one, and this one is a guy who was in the Grand Canyon.
Okay, so that's
and it's gonna go up to this picture right here. Floyd Roberts III was hiking with companions near the Grand Canyon Parashant National Monument in 2020. The group encountered a hill and decided to alter their route. Floyd decided to take an alternate path up the hill while his hiking companions took the main trail. Floyd never appeared at the meeting point. A search was initiated immediately. Despite a 6-day intensive search involving on-the-ground teams and helicopter surveillance, no trace of Floyd Roberts III was ever found. His remains were not discovered. No search dog found any scent trail. No evidence of his final location was ever established. He had simply vanished.
All right, so do I.
Yeah, the next one is
Case number
this little
4.
boy, and it goes to that.
So William Callahan, Mount Disappointment, July 2020. William Callahan was an 11-year-old boy on a family hike in Mount Disappointment near Melbourne, Australia. He became separated from his family.
You can pause that.
Okay. An intensive search was launched immediately, extremely unusual for an 11-year-old missing in a well-populated area not far from Melbourne. Search and rescue teams scoured the brush. Helicopters flew overhead. Tracking dogs hunted for scent. After 2 nights of searching, William Callahan had not been found. Then suddenly, he was spotted standing barefoot in the bush, covering his ears to block out the sound of the helicopters above him. He was located only about 1.5 kilometers from the search command post. This raises a startling question. How had William not been found earlier? The search perimeter encompassed the area where he was discovered. Why didn't search team locate him during the first night of searching? How did he end up only a short distance from command, a distance that surely would have been covered during intensive initial searching? When rescuers found William, he was disoriented, confused, and unable to explain what had happened during the time he was missing. His account was vague and unclear. So, the missing time phenomenon. What's particularly striking about the Callahan case and others like it is what researchers call the missing time component. Individuals disappear, reappear after time has passed, and report having no clear memory of what occurred during the missing period. They describe confusion, disorientation, and a sense of time having passed differently than it should have. This phenomenon is documented in multiple categories of cases. Number one, disappearance and recovery cases. Person disappears, reappears days, weeks, or months later with missing time and unclear memories. Number two, impossible travel cases. Persons found at far from disappearing location in terrains that would require more time to traverse than was actually available. Number three, environmental disorientation cases. Persons become inexplicably disoriented in familiar terrains and seem unable to navigate despite being an experienced hiker. And lastly, equipment malfunction. The GPS device failed, compasses spin, radios go dead in specific geographic zones. Huh?
Yeah. The disappearance phenomenon is not limited to North American national parks, and you can stop when it gets there.
Okay.
Similar patterns are documented globally in Siberia, Australia, the Caucasus Mountains, and other remote regions. The most famous and most disturbing international disappearance case, it's this one, you can stop,
No, I didn't.
is the Dyatlov pass incident of February of 1959 in Russia's Ural Mountains. On January 23rd, 1959, a group of 9 experienced mountaineers departed from the town of Vizhai in the Russian Ural Mountains for what should have been a routine 4-week skiing expedition. Routine, 4 weeks of skiing. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student. The team members were all experienced hikers and skiers. They were all well equipped. They carried food and supplies adequate for their journey. Their goal was to reach Mount Otorden, also called Kholat Syakhl, a peak in the northern Ural Mountains, approximately 120 kilometers from their starting point. On February 2nd, 1959, 10 days into the expedition, the group set up camp on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl. This was to be their base camp for their summit attempt. That night, something happened that remains unexplained to this day.
When the tent was discovered by rescue searchers, some weeks later, it revealed a scene of inexplicable horror. The tent was caught from the inside. Its occupant had apparently fled the tent in the middle of the night in sub-zero temperatures, wearing only partial clothing. Some bodies were found barefoot, some wore only socks. None wore full cold weather gear appropriate for temperatures that were well below 30 degrees Celsius. The bodies were found scattered across the area in various states of decomposition. Some were discovered while miles from the tent, distances that would require hours of travel through deep snow. One body, that of Ludmila Duminana, was found with her tongue missing. Other bodies showed evidence of internal injuries with no corresponding external ones, and that was minus 30 degrees. The official Soviet investigation concluded that the death resulted from an unknown compelling forces. But this conclusion raises more questions than answers. What compelling force would cause experienced mountaineers to flee their shelter into deadly cold? What force could cause internal injuries without external trauma?
Theories about the Dyatlov Pass incident range from conventional to extraordinary. Number one, the avalanche theory. Recent analysis suggests that a slab of avalanche may have impacted the tent area, causing the tent to collapse and prompting evacuation. However, this doesn't explain all the aspects of the evidence. Number two, Yeti/cryptid theory. Local legends speak of an abominable snowman in the Ural Mountains. Perhaps the creatures attacked the camp, but there's no evidence of attack wounds. Number 3, a military exercise theory. Perhaps a secret Soviet military exercise or weapons test occurred in that area, but Soviet authorities have provided no evidence to support this. Number 4 would be an electromagnetic anomaly theory. Perhaps the area experienced unusual electromagnetic or geophysical phenomena that incapacitated the group or caused disorientation. This is speculative, but would explain some of the evidence. Number 5 would be missing time/abduction theory. Perhaps the group experienced missing time and was affected by an external force that caused the injuries and disorientation. This is highly speculative, but it can't be ruled out.
What's important is that nearly 70 years after the Dyatlov Pass incident, we still don't have a complete, satisfying explanation. The case remains officially unsolved. The families of the victims still want answers. Researchers continue to investigate. And the Dyatlov Pass remains one of the most infamous disappearance and death cases in mountaineering history. A cautionary tale about what can happen in remote, isolated wilderness areas.
And that's why we don't camp
Anymore.
as much.
Australian disappearance. Australia has also experienced unusual disappearing cases in 2020 during the Australian bushfire season. Multiple hikers and bushwhackers disappeared in remote areas and were found days or weeks later having traveled seemingly impossible distances or survived in environments where survival seemed impossible. One documented case involved a hiker who disappeared in densely forested bush and was found alive weeks later, many kilometers from where he disappeared, having traversed terrain that would require days to cross. These cases, like North American cases, suggest that something systematic might be occurring in the wilderness areas globally, not random accidents or typical misadventures, but something more anomalous, more pattern-based, more fundamentally mysterious.
So when researchers like David Paulides analyze the global data on wilderness disappearances, certain patterns emerge that are difficult to explain through conventional means. Pattern 1, geographic clustering. You can pause it. Disappearances don't occur randomly, come back to us. Across wilderness areas, they cluster in specific zones. These zones are often correspond to locations with geological or mineral deposits that create unusual electromagnetic fields, known or legendary underground cave and tunnel systems, indigenous traditions of sacred or dangerous locations, previous reports of unexplained phenomena. Pattern 2 would be temporal clustering. While disappearances happen year-round, certain times of year see increased frequency. Interestingly, these temporal patterns don't correlate with seasonal tourism or weather patterns that would suggest the disappearances are simply accidents due to increased traffic or bad weather. Pattern 3 would be victim profile similarity. While people of all ages do disappear, children and elderly individuals are overrepresented compared to what random accident patterns would predict. Additionally, people with specific traits, athletic, experienced outdoors people, psychics, intuitive individuals, they disappear at higher rates than would be expected. And pattern 4, equipment failure correlation. In cluster zones, technology and frequency malfunctions, GPS devices give impossible readings or fail entirely, compasses become unreliable and spin wildly, radio communications are cut out, no Starlink, cell phone signals lose signal even in areas with coverage, flashlights dim or fail.
Hold on. So Elite 45 said, had you experienced anything while camping? Strange noises or seeing abnormal animals? Not really.
I don't think so. Not on this
Why is this
journey
thing
that
still
we went
going?
on.
Hold on. This is still going.
Oh no.
I know. Let's see here.
You want to take that off.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to take it back to where it was. Was that there? No.
Oh no, no, you're too far out.
Too far. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. This thing just started moving on its own.
Yeah, keep going.
Just got to try to get it back to
So-
where it was.
Yeah, kind of, no, back a little bit. Okay,
Yeah. All right.
you can go past that. Gotta go past that.
Okay.
Gotta let that play out,
Okay.
and I'll let you know.
Okay.
because that's the Dyatlov Pass
Okay.
incident. So this pattern is so consistent that experienced search and rescue teams now expect equipment failures in cluster zones and plan accordingly. Given these patterns, various theories have emerged to explain the phenomenon. Theory 1, electromagnetic anomaly hypothesis. You can pause that.
Okay. So that's the question that the lead had. Strange noises or
No,
not really. We didn't really experience any strange things like that.
no, I mean, I can't really point to anything.
Except for bad weather, rain, wind.
Yeah, nature did its own thing.
Yeah. Can't really.
No, I don't remember of anything really.
No. Just gone.
That's your turn.
Okay, so theory 1, electromagnetic anomaly hypothesis. Certain geographic zones have unusual electromagnetic characteristics due to mineral deposits, geological faults, or other geological features. These electromagnetic anomalies can disrupt electronic navigation equipment, affect human nervous system functions, and cause disorientation, creates altered consciousness states, potentially affect perception of space and time. This theory is grounded in legitimate scientific understanding of electromagnetic effects. It doesn't require belief in the supernatural, just recognition that conventional physics can produce effects we don't fully understand. Theory 2, interdimensional gateway hypotheses. Some researchers speculate that cluster zones are locations where dimensional boundaries are thinner places where entry to alternate dimensions or parallel realities is possible. This would explain people disappearing from terrain that was being actively searched, impossible traversals or distances, missing time reports, bodies appearing in previously researched area. This theory is highly speculative and not based on conventional physics, but it would account for many of the anomalies features of the cases. Theory 3, underground population hypothesis. Some researchers suggest that the disappearances are not random or accidental, but systematically extractions of people by an intelligent operation from underground. These underground populations might use technologies we don't understand, have access to subterranean networks connecting different surfaces location, periodically collect surface humans for purposes unknown, leave some evidence of their actions while concealing most evidence. God. Oh, these theories align with legends of underground or civilization and entities. It would explain the pattern of disappearance and the strange characteristics of recovery.
The truth is that we don't know which, if any, of these theories is correct. What we can say is that something unusual is occurring in the wilderness areas globally, something that defies easy explanation and seems to follow patterns that suggest intelligence and design. Whether that intelligence is geological, electromagnetic, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or underground in origin, we cannot definitively say. But the evidence for the anomalies themselves is strong and well documented. Beneath the rocky slopes of the Cheyenne Mountain range is NORAD.
Right. Can you go down? Beneath the rocky slopes of Cheyenne Mountains in Colorado Springs lies what may be the single most important military command facility ever constructed. The Cheyenne Mountain Complex, home to the North American Aerospace Defense Command, the NORADs. The sheer scale and sophistication of this facility is staggering. Construction began in May 1961 and was completed in 1967 at a cost of $142.4 million, an enormous sum for that era. The Army Corps of Engineers excavated 693 tons of granite from the mountains to create the complex construction details is buried under approximately 2,000 feet of solid granite. The entrance is controlled by a series of massive blast doors, each weighing 25 tons and measures over 3 feet thick. These doors can slam shut in just 45 seconds, creating a complete sealed underground fortress. Inside the mountain, engineers excavated 6 parallel tunnels, each 3 stories tall and running horizontally through the rock. At strategic points, they created 15 3-story buildings carved from the remaining rock. But here's the engineering marvel that makes Cheyenne Mountain remarkable. The buildings are not attached to the mountain structure. Instead, they're suspended on a system of over 1,300 massive steel springs, each weighing 1,000 pounds. Attached to these springs are hydraulic dampers that work like shock absorbers in a car. This suspension system allows the building to absorb and dissipate the shock wave from nuclear explosion detonation as close as 1.24 miles away. A nuclear blast that would destroy a surface structure is in essence absorbed by the spring system and largely negated by the massive overburden of rock.
The facility has its own independent water supply. You can play it all the way to that.
Okay.
Power generation and air filtration systems. Air intakes have HEPA filters capable of removing radioactive particles, biological agents, and chemical warfare agents. The complex can sustain its population in complete isolation for months. NORAD's mission at Cheyenne Mountain was to maintain continuous surveillance of North American airspace. During the Cold War, NORAD was responsible for detecting Soviet bombers or missiles approaching North America and coordinating defensive responses. You can pause it. Okay. To accomplish this, NORAD operated 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, in a constant state of alert. At the height of operations, approximately 2,000 military and civilian personnel worked at Cheyenne Mountain. The facility contained sophisticated radar systems, satellite communication equipment, computer systems for the era, and command and control infrastructure that was cutting edge in the 1960s.
What's significant about Cheyenne Mountain is not just the facility itself, but what it represents. A commitment to underground infrastructure on a scale that most civilians never appreciate or comprehend. The fact that such a facility was built, maintained, and continuously updated for over 50 years demonstrates that governments take underground fortification seriously. Cheyenne Mountain is not unique. It's merely the most famous and most thoroughly documented example of underground military infrastructure.
So, the United States maintains an extensive network of underground military bases. In addition to Cheyenne Mountain, we have, you can play it.
Hold on, I have to put somebody on timeout. Let me see.
There's Raven Rock Mountain Complex. Carved into a mountain on the border between Maryland and Pennsylvania, Raven Rock is an alternative command center for the Department of War, Defense, and the Pentagon. The facility can accommodate approximately 3,000 people and is designed to operate independently for extended periods. During the 2001, you can stop it, terrorist attacks on September 11th, Vice President Dick Cheney was taken to a similar facility, Mount Weather, in Virginia, as a secure location. Raven Rock is maintained constantly as a backup command center in case Washington, D.C. is destroyed or rendered inoperable.
Okay, so Mount Weather is administered by FEMA and is designated as a site for continuity of government in catastrophic scenarios. It's theorized to contain facilities for government leadership, survival, and command operation during worst-case scenarios, like Area 51 in Nevada. While Area 51 above-ground facilities are known and documented, the extent of underground infrastructures at the site remains classified. Multiple sources suggest extensive tunnel systems and underground chambers used for classified research and development.
You can go on with the next one.
Okay.
Similar to Area 51, Tonopah has extensive surface facilities, but also rumored underground infrastructure for weapons testing and research. And these are images of Area 51 right now that we're doing, showing how something that's so I don't know, it's so minimal in what it looks like is such a big deal. And that Tonopah is an airfield out in the Southwest as well. that is similar and has similar restrictions, apparently. And recently they have the Utah Data Center near Bluffdale, Utah. This is an NSA facility built at Camp Williams. It is designed to store and process massive amounts of data. While officially described as a data center, sources suggest the facility has underground components and extensive hardening against attack.
But the United States is far from unique in developing underground military infrastructures. Globally, major powers have invested heavily in underground bases. Russia, Yamantau, Russia's most extensive underground installation, is reportedly located beneath Mount Yamantau in the Ural Mountains. Intelligence assessments suggest this facility's enormous, possibly encompassing hundreds of square kilometers of tunnels and chambers. The facility is theorized to be a backup command center for the Russian government and military, capable of surviving nuclear war and sustaining the government and military command for extended periods. Some analysts estimate the facility could support 60,000 people.
You can show that. So we have some images coming up of that specific Russian army base called, it looks like it's out of a James Bond movie or something, right? And it's amazing how not just the United States has these massive places, but also other countries have them. China has the Hainan submarine base. Built into solid rock beneath South China Sea, China's submarine base at Hainan can accommodate China's entire submarine fleet. The facility is extremely hardened and capable of sustaining operations independently. The next one would be in Iran. Built into a mountain, Iran's Fordow facility is designed to be resistant to airstrikes and attack. The facility has been the subject of international concern regarding nuclear weapons programs. North Korea maintains an extensive network of underground facilities throughout the country. The facilities include command centers, weapons storage, and military production facilities. The extent and sophistication of North Korea's underground infrastructure is poorly documented but believed to be significant. Globally, estimates suggest there are over 10,000 underground military bases on Earth. Some are small bunkers, others, you can pause it, are enormous complexes rivaling small cities in scale. Some are continuously manned, others are maintained in standby status for potential use in wartime or catastrophic scenarios. The sheer investment of resources, the geographical distribution, and the continued expansion and upgrading of these facilities suggests that underground infrastructure is a major component of global military and strategic planning. The conventional explanation for underground bases is straightforward. They provide protection from air attack, nuclear blast, radiation and chemical and biological warfare. They allow military and government command structures to survive catastrophic attacks on surface facilities. They enable continuity of government and military operations even in worst-case scenarios. But some researchers speculate that underground bases might serve additional purposes.
Research and development of facilities hidden from public view and satellite surveillance. Underground bases could house research into technology we're not supposed to know about, reverse engineer extraterrestrial technology, genetic research, weapons development beyond international treaty restrictions. Number 2, monitoring outpost. If subterranean intelligence, a phenomenon exists that some research speculate underground bases might function as monitoring and liaison locations for contact with underground population. Number 3, historical repositories, underground bases, could serve as secure storage for artifacts, documents, and knowledge that government wish to conceal, ancient technology, evidence of non-human visitation, and documentation of suppressed historical events. Number 4, population preservation. In extreme scenarios, underground bases could serve as a seed bank for human civilization. places where population and resources could be preserved to allow human civilization to rebuild after catastrophic surfaces. These speculative purposes are not proven and may never be verified within access to classified information, but the sheer scale of global underground infrastructure, the resources dedicated to it, the continuous maintenance and expansion, the secrecy surrounding it suggests that official explanations may not account for everything governments are doing underground. What we can say definitely is that beneath our feet, across the entire planet, vast networks of underground military and governmental infrastructures exist. What exactly happens in these facilities, what they're truly used for, and what justifies their enormity, cost, and complexity remain largely unknown to the public.
I mean, researchers investigating underground infrastructures, and particularly the theory has emerged. It's called the DUMB theory, Deep Underground Military Base Network. The theory suggests that underground bases don't exist in isolation, but are connected through a vast network of tunnels and transportation systems. According to this theory, a global tunnel network exists that connects major underground bases. This tunnel network would allow rapid transportation of personnel and materials between bases, movement that's invisible to satellite surveillance, strategic repositioning of military assets in wartime, potential evacuation of government and military leadership to secure locations. Proponents of the DUMB network theory point to the geographic distribution of known underground bases, the enormous cost of underground facility construction, which might be justified if bases are part of a larger interconnected system. References to tunnel systems in declassified military documents and reports. Witness accounts from construction workers and military personnel who describe participation in tunnel construction.
Some researchers go further and speculate that the DUMB network isn't just a military government infrastructure system, but potentially an interface with underground populations or technologies, according to this speculative theory. The DUMB network might provide access to naturally occurring cave systems and underground rivers and aquifers. The network might connect to subterranean cities or settlement of unknown origins. The network might facilitate contact with underground intelligence. Certain tunnels routes might provide access to electromagnetic or dimensional gateways. This is highly speculative territory, but it's worth noting because it connects the underground base infrastructure to other threads in our investigation. The legends of underground cities, the disappearance from wilderness, which might represent abductions via tunnel entrances point, and the Mount Shasta legends.
Whether DUMB network exists and whether it serves the purposes speculated is unknown. What is known is that extensive underground infrastructure exists. Globally, the tunnel construction is a continuous process and that these projects remain largely hidden from public view and understanding. The DUMB theory represents an attempt to impose coherence on fragmented evidence and observations. It may be accurate in broad outline, partially accurate, or entirely inaccurate. The problem is that the classified nature of the infrastructure prevents definitive verification. And, that is kind of like the theme of everything, is that things don't seem to line up in our official narrative and what is actually taking place in actual, like, what is accounted for.
Exactly.
Because we have these different theories of how things, and even the purposes of why NORAD exists, or purposes of why some people speculate that the airport in Denver has tunnel system that connects to NORAD.
Well, according to a lot of the research that we've done and documentaries that we've watched, there's a tunnel system throughout the world that connects,
Yeah.
It's like,
what in the world could possibly, inspire something that to be a part of what's actually taking place? These.
To me, it's some sort of interdimensional, and we could be looking at dimensions being different levels of the earth, we're thinking, some sort of portal, which could be, but we could be something that could take you deep down the rabbit hole, literally,
Well, I mean, there are so many theories and so many ideas that we've shared on this show about what's going on underneath the ground. One thing we can all agree with is that we're not being told the truth.
Oh, that's for sure. I mean, and then if someone tries to tell the truth, some other group, like the Christians, for instance, they want to make it seem like if there is any kind of disclosure, it's going to be demons. Mm-hmm. They can't wrap it around their minds that there are other dimensional beings from maybe not other planets. If the world is flat and it's not round, there's not planets, other dimensions, maybe down in the earth, maybe other parts of the whole planet or plane or whatever we want to call it. But there's just definitely not just demons or a devil under every rock.
Well, we've really taken a journey on all kinds of different, theories, different historical events, what actually happened, what may not have happened. Admiral Byrd, some say he's credible, some say he's not credible.
And those that may say he's not credible may not want the truth to come out. So you know how that goes. I mean, you can't really trust the naysayers because they have their own agenda.
Yeah.
They're trying to, imagine if all this stuff were to erupt completely. Well, the religious institutions will lose all their power, although they're trying to spin their own story, that if there is something that comes from elsewhere, it's got to be the devil. It's got to be bad because, they don't want to lose their whole storyline.
Yeah, so we've investigated Admiral Byrd.
Yeah, and he's a man who conquered both polar regions, achieved genuine geographic and scientific breakthrough, yet whose later life and discoveries remain mysterious and partially concealed.
We've explored Mount Shasta and the legends of Lemuria, a mountain that has inspired spiritual seekers and explorers for centuries, associated with underground cities and non-human intelligence.
We've examined the missing 411 phenomenon, the systematic disappearance of people in wilderness areas across the globe, often under circumstances that defy conventional explanation and follow patterns that suggest intelligence and design.
We've detailed the world's underground military bases, a vast network of hardened, sophisticated facilities spanning every continent, built to survive nuclear war and sustain government and military operations in catastrophic scenarios.
We've traced Operation High Jump and the Antarctic Treaty, a massive military expedition that was terminated abruptly, followed by an international agreement to seal off the entire continent from military activity and further exploration.
When you examine each of these phenomena individually, they can seem disconnected, isolated curiosities that don't necessarily relate to each other. But when you step back and look at the entire pattern, something emerges.
A consistent theme of hidden depths, literally figuratively, humanity appears to have knowledge, discoveries, and experiences with subterranean or hidden realities that have been deliberately compartmentalized, classified, and concealed from public knowledge.
Whether that hidden reality involves ancient civilizations beneath mountains, intelligent entities operating from underground locations, technological discoveries beyond what has been publicly acknowledged, or access to dimensions or spaces outside normal human experience, something exists below the bedrock that governments and institutions have decided to keep secret.
The question is, why? What justifies such extensive secrecy? Why or what would be so transformative, so dangerous, so fundamentally paradigm shifting that it warranted? Classifying vast amounts of military and government information, building vast underground infrastructures at enormous expense, negotiating international agreements to restrict access to regions, coordinating across rival powers to maintain secrecy, deliberately withholding information from the public for decades.
The answers to these questions remain elusive, but the pattern itself, the consistent evidence of secrecy, compartmentalization and concealment suggests that something genuinely significant is being hidden. So what does it mean if we accept the significant knowledge is being deliberately concealed? What are the implications for how we understand our history, our place in the world, and the nature of reality? First, it suggests that official histories and publicly available information are incomplete, not necessarily false, but incomplete. Probably more so false. Missing crucial information that would alter fundamentally our understanding of events, timelines, and causation. If governments have knowledge of subterranean civilizations, of technologies beyond what has been publicly acknowledged, of contact with NHI, non-human intelligences, or dimensional phenomena, not demons, Christians, and have deliberately concealed this knowledge, then everything you were taught in school, published in mainstream media, and accepted as historical truth may not be true.
Yep. Second, it suggests that the narrative of human progress and understanding is not as straightforward as we're taught. The history of technology, of exploration, of science discovery might have significant hidden chapters that we're not aware of.
Third, it implies that there is information hierarchies in human society. Some people, government officials, military leaders, elites, intelligence agency personnel, corporate executives, academic researchers have access to classified information that fundamentally changes how they understand reality. The rest of us are kept in partial ignorance.
This creates a kind of cognitive divide. There is the reality understood by those with access to classified information, and there's the reality understood by the general public. These two realities may be significantly different. Those with access to classified information about what actually exists below the bedrock, about subterranean phenomenon, underground civilization, non-human intelligence, hidden technology, operates from a fundamentally different understanding of reality than those without access. This divide has implications for policy, decision-making, and how society functions. When leadership operates from a significantly different understanding of reality than the general population, there are potential consequences for social coherence, democratic process, and the alignment of institutional goals with public interest.
Perhaps most fundamentally, the evidence for hidden knowledge and deliberately concealed phenomena suggests that human consciousness itself may need to evolve. We may need to expand our understanding of what's possible, what exists, and what we are capable of perceiving and achieving. Throughout history, when humans have been confronted with evidence that contradicts their established worldview, the response has often been denial, suppression, or gradual adjustment. We're potentially in a period where collective human consciousness is being asked to adjust to a reality that is more complex, more mysterious, and more profound than the simplified version we've been taught.
As we conclude, let's acknowledge what remains unknown, mysterious, and concealed. Below the bedrock of our world lies reality that most of us never directly experience or verify. That reality may include advanced civilization existing in subterranean location, not demons, technologies beyond what has been publicly acknowledged, intelligence operating from underground or interdimensional space, phenomena that physics hasn't adequately explained, historical events that have been deliberately concealed, capabilities of human consciousness that have been suppressed. We don't know which of these is true, which is false, and which is partially true. The evidence points towards the existence of something hidden, but doesn't definitely establish what that something is.
What we can do is, number one, seek truth. Continue investigating, questioning, and seeking evidence beyond what institutions and churches and mainstream sources provide. 2, maintain critical thinking. Neither blindly accept official narratives nor uncritically embrace alternative theories. Evaluate evidence carefully and maintain intellectual integrity. Number 3, preserve open inquiry. Resist the impulse to settle into comfortable explanations. Stay willing to have your understanding challenged and transformed by new evidence. Number 4 would be to support transparency. Advocate for declassification of information, freedom of information, and governmental and institutional transparency. Number 5, develop your own direct experience. Rather than relying solely on secondhand information, engage directly with mystery. Visit significant locations. Meditate on deeper questions. Cultivate your own ability to perceive beyond conventional senses.
This is the journey below the bedrock, not a destination that can be definitely reached, but a path of ongoing inquiry that transforms how you see reality. The mysteries remain. The evidence continues to accumulate. The hidden depth of our world awaits those willing to look beyond the surface and ask deeper questions. Thank you for joining us on this extended, and this has been a long one, exploration. We've covered an enormous amount of territory, geographically, historically, and conceptually, but we've only scratched the surface of what lies beneath.
So we want you to keep seeking, keep questioning, keep your mind open to possibilities, that things aren't only what your Bible says or can be explained away by demons or what your churches and institutions want to keep hidden. The truth below the bedrock is waiting for those ready to discover it. Not fear it.
Yep.
Not say it's demonic.
Right.
But to really look into it and to make your own decision.
Yeah. So until next time, as we've rambled long enough tonight, we'll see you guys next week. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. We appreciate those of you that have been listening and spend the time with us here, even on a holiday like today. We thank you. I'm Mark Angelo. We'll be back soon with more exploration into the hidden mysteries of our world. Until then, keep your conscience sharp, your mind questioning, and remember, everything you've been told might not be everything there is to know.
We love you, but remember to always love yourselves too.
Have a good one, guys. Take care. Let's see, there's one more comment. She said, what a good show. I hope you have a good evening and hope to see you again soon. Good night. Good night,
Good night.
45. Thank you, guys. Have a good one.